Okay, we're moving on to question 4. This is where we start doing data handling questions. So let's just shift our mind toward that thinking and look at the scenario that's presented. So it says the motorcycle land speed record is the fastest speed achieved by a motorcyclist on land. Okay, table 2 below shows the motorcycle land speed records from 1930 to 2010. Okay, so here's all of the records. There's the year, there's the speed, there's the rider, and again, just so that we can go over the whole time frame. Don't spend too much time looking at the information, rather go and get into the questions because that will help us understand what's being asked, okay? Or what they're wanting us to focus on. So it says here, use table 2, right, which is up here, to answer the questions that follow. It says determine the difference between the highest and the lowest land speed records that were set between 1950 and 2000, right? So now what's important is what students want to do here is they want to say, okay, it's that amount minus that amount, right? Because they want to do the range. Now, you're not wrong. We are doing the range and that we're doing a max minus a min, but we're doing a max minus a min in a specific time period, right? So we can't do 1930 because it's saying between 1950 and 2000. So let's see where the first one is, right? Between that interval, it's there, and 2000 would be up to there, right? So now we actually have to say the 322,15, right? We have to say that minus the 180,29. So just be careful there because students are like, oh, this is so easy, and then they don't actually think it through carefully, right? So I'm not starting this on a new page, but please remember with each question, you must start on a new page, right? Because that's what it says in the instructions. But let's just go and write this. So we're going to say 322, so 322.15, so minus 180.29. Okay, now what students sometimes struggle with here is they don't know where these numbers come from, or they put things in their calculator incorrectly. So just be very careful there. So 322.15 minus 180.29, and your answer there is 141.86. Please remember that there is a unit of measurement here, right? You could be saying, well, where is it? It says here in the title, miles per hour. So you can say miles per hour, and we're done. Okay, so don't forget your units. You don't want to lose marks for that. Let's move on to the next question. Determine the number of riders that set new land speed records from 1930 to 2010. Now, you could be saying, oh, we can just count the number of data points that we have. Well, no, it says the number of riders. What you should be able to see is that some of these riders are repeated, right? So we're not going to count them twice. So, for example, Joseph S. Wright, we can see that he's here and he's here. We're not going to count him as 2. We're only going to count him as 1. And that's quite important. So we have here 1, 2, we have him many times, 3, 4, we've had him before, 5, 6, 7, we've had him before, 8, 9, 10, 11, repeat, 12, 13, 14. So there's 14 unique people. That doesn't mean the record was only broken 14 times. It was broken more than that, but it was broken by 14 distinct people. So just be very careful there because students tend to get that incorrect because they don't understand the nuance of what's being asked. Okay, so it is 14. Okay. The next question then says, identify the 2 years during which the land speed record remained unbroken for the longest time, and also state the number of years the record remained unbroken. Now, when I read this question, I was like, what on earth is being said? It's basically saying, find the interval in this table where the record remained unbroken for the longest. So let's look here. Got broken quite quickly there, quite quickly. Here seems to be quite a jump, right? So that's, if you put that into your calculator or do in your head, that's 14 years. Here it's quite close, quite close, quite close. They're all quite close, none are bigger than 14. But then look here, that is 16 years. Okay, from 1990 to 2006, these are all close. So the 2 years are 1990 to 2006, right? So you have to say that, say the 2 years. So you can say 1990 and 2006. And then read the question carefully. It says, and state the number of years it remained unbroken for. So that's not just the answer. You then have to say 16 years. Okay. Now, be careful with questions where it has more than one thing that it's asking for, because students often forget that there is more than one thing they need to actually answer. And then even if they understand the question, they haven't fully answered it. Okay. So be careful there. So let's look at the next one. Name the rider that held the land speed record the most number of times, and also state how many times the rider held the record. Now, when you look at this, you should be able to see that Ernst Henny, right, he was the most frequent in the record-breaking group of people, right? So we can see he's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, right? He was absolute legend, right? So he then broke it 6 times. So we know the answer here is Ernst J. Henny, and he broke it 6 times. Again, not enough to just say this oak's name, right? You actually have to say also how many times he broke it. There's 2 things you have to do to get the full marks there. Then last question here says, determine the probability as a percentage, important, they've told you what format they want you to write it in, of randomly selecting a land speed record in table 2 that was set during the 21st century. Okay, 21st century basically means anything after 2000. So all we're looking at are these ones here, because everything before that was the 20th century. Okay, now you could be saying, how come it has a 19 in front of all of these and it's considered the 20th century, right? So remember, when it comes to the century, you're always looking at the previous 100 years, right? So the 20th century is actually talking about 1900s. The 21st century is talking about the 2000s. I don't know if that's how you say it, but that's what I mean. Okay. So it says determine the probability. So how many are there here? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So it's going to be 5. Let me just make sure you can see that. Right, there we go. It's going to be 5. And then it says of randomly selecting a land speed record from the table. So how many entries are there in the table? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. And then there's 1 less here. So 13 times 2 is 26. Minus 1 is 25. You can count all of them if you want. But it's basically 5 over 25. It asked us to put it as a percentage. So please make sure that you do that correctly. To make it a percentage, you times by 100. You can put that into your calculator or do it in your head, right, if you don't believe me, but the answer is 20%. Okay, so there's that question done. Quite a little bit of a tricky question. Like, there were many sort of like ins and outs that you needed to be aware of, but not a difficult question in that the actual mathematics wasn't difficult. Okay, let's move on to the next question.